Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Filmmakers Flow podcast. I'm your host, Denzel. Episode 8. Here we are. We're rolling. We are 2 away from 10 episodes, and that's pretty cool. Hopefully, you have been enjoying the podcast so far. I mean, like I say this every week, but I really am enjoying this. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I got some fun topics I'm going to be working on over the next couple of weeks, bringing some things to you guys. Some to kind of switch it up. I want to do some fun stuff too. I think all of it's fun, but I do a lot of like talking about things that's like, oh, this is how you can do this to be better. And that's like the goal of the podcast. So I'm just adjusting the mic real quick. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to kind of do some different things like, some top 10 lists and some greatest filmmakers of all time type list, things like that. Just kind of talk about some other stuff because this is not only an educational podcast, but it's, just general talk about the industry from a filmmaker's perspective. I keep knocking the mic, so sorry if that made noise. I do my best to do these without making any cuts or edits. One, it's easier for me to produce and doesn't take a lot of time because like I edit full time, so I'm always editing. But I also like it to be more, organic, and I don't want it to be overly produced. This is more chill. We're talking, we're having a conversation. So that's like the whole goal of the podcast, and that's the vibe I've been going for. And I think we're doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good. But so today I want to talk about some pieces of gear that I think are important. I do a lot of like, oh, you don't need to get certain things, but thesis. What word is that? These are some pieces of gear that I think are definitely important to have as a filmmaker, and definitely an indie filmmaker. So I'm going to start off with number one, and the one that took me the longest to get, but I'm so glad that I have one, and I need to get more, but a C-stand. Man, yeah. I just think about all the years of doing things and knowing I should have had a C-stand, and which is one of those things I just kept putting off. C-stands are not like a exciting buy or like the super like, oh, look at that. It's not the sexy buy. It's not the thing that's like, ooh, like, we think about cameras or other, cool toys and bells and whistles. And it's like, oh, C-stand? All right. But man, C-stands are legit. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But it's not all I'm gonna say about it, but they are legit. Like, you can use them as light stands, that's one thing you can do, but they're so like, they come in clutch when it comes to like rigging stuff. Like, you need to get like hang some silk up, or you want to do like a book light type setup. So you want to have some type of reflector to bounce light. If you needed to have I'm using a mic stand, but you could kind of use it as like a boom mic in a way. You could, bring it overhead and then put a mic on it. You can use it as a light. I've done that a lot, use them as like overhead lights, to get lights into this perfect spot. Because if you're using a regular light stand and you need to get the light close, you have to be concerned about the legs on the light getting into your shot. But with a C-stand, you have, your base and your legs set up, but then you can, go up with it. You can use the arm on the C-stand and slide things over and get it in the perfect spot you need to get it in. And my light is spazzing out. It's charged this time. It really is. I don't know why it's flashing like that. If it keeps doing it, I might turn it off, but I think we're okay right now. You might not be able to notice it, but the light's spazzing out. But yeah, so they're super useful, super versatile. You can use them in so many different situations. You can use them as a light stand, as a mic stand. I normally put my lights on it, and especially if you start getting heavier lights, they're good for that because you don't want to risk having a heavy light on a flimsy, light stand that you get from like Amazon or something like that. But yeah, C-stands are just super, I think, important. You can use C-stands to mount your camera. Definitely be careful with how you do it. You don't want to put too much weight on it. And we have a visitor. guest appearance from my dog. She just decided to hop in. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't see, but my dog just came here and jumped on the couch. Guess she wanted to be a part of the podcast today. But yeah, anyway, the C-stands are just super good. If you have a C-stand, and once you get a C-stand, you'll understand where I'm coming from. You're like, oh man, yeah, this is important because you really can use the camera. That's what I was talking about. If you ever see people do those cool overhead shots with their camera where like they mount them and like you're like, oh dang, how do you get that high shot, like a top down overhead shot? You can use C-stands for that because the thread size usually, like my C-stand has two different on either side of the arm. There's two different thread sizes. So I have a size that fits the thread size at the base of my camera for like a tripod base plate, and I can screw that in right there, and then you can basically mount your camera up. Like I said, be careful because if you have a super heavy camera, I would not suggest that. But if you have like a mirrorless or like a lighter camera, then it'll be fine. But yeah, C-stands definitely important to get. Moving on to the other thing that took me a while to get, but once I got it, I was like, super glad I did, is a monitor. And you don't have to get like anything crazy. It doesn't even have to be a monitor that's like an external recorder. Like it doesn't even have to be on that level. And my whole reason was two reasons I guess three reasons. Well, I guess four reasons. I keep thinking of reasons. The main reason is for reference, using it as a reference monitor. And once I got it, I saw how much easier it was for me to frame up shots and do composition without straining, especially if you're a person who has shot on mirrorless cameras or DSLRs for most of their career. A lot of those screens are small and tiny, I guess, unless you're shooting on Blackmagic or something. But a lot of those screens are small and tiny, and you can do it. I mean, I did it for years, but once you have a monitor, I'm looking up on my monitor now, it just really helps you to be able to see a bigger image, to really see what you're looking at. And then it's easier to grab focus with that. Some other reasons why I like it is you can put, with some monitors, not all, but with some monitors, you can display a LUT. So let me not go overly complicated. Let me try to explain this correctly. So in my use case, if I am shooting in log on my camera, I can't reference what it would look like with a picture profile. So on my camera's screen itself, it will basically show me a flat, washed out looking log image, which is not ideal when you're on set, especially if you're shooting for somebody else, because then they don't want to look at that. And I mean, I don't even want to look at that. I can get past it because I know I'm looking at log, but it's not as easy to expose when you're shooting that way. Let me get back on track. The cool thing is with like how my camera is, if I have a external monitor, I can output one of my camera's picture profiles to display on my monitor, and that way, even though my camera is recording in log, and that's what my camera's actual built-in screen is showing me, is a logged image, but my external monitor is outputting whichever picture profile I have selected, which is cool. Another way people use monitors is they will input LUTs. So like if you already know what the show LUT is going to be for whatever you're shooting, and maybe you've already made it or whatever the case may be, or you got a LUT that you're going to be referencing and using, it's going to come up later when you're color grading. It's cool to be able to light on set for whatever your image is going to relatively look like, if you were able to make your LUT ahead of time. So that's cool too. The other way that I use monitors is for exposure, and I use false colors. Some cameras have it built in. My camera does not. You can use waveforms and things like that too, but I like to use false color because it gives me a lot more accuracy, I think, because I can really look at, if you know how false colors work, different colors will show you different exposures. So for some monitors, if you're like pink or super red or something, your image is like washed out. Or if you're like blue, like a dark blue, it's like super underexposed. And then you can see, okay, if you're like green and gray and like a little bit yellow, you're like, that's like your skin, your midtones, or, your skin is in this range. So you can, it's no perfect rule, I'm just saying, but you can see individual things within the scene and see like at what exposures they're hitting. That's why I like false colors. Audio, microphone. I'm not going to specifically say what type of microphone you need to have or anything like that, but having audio and having a microphone is super important. Anything you're doing, but like, doing narrative, you got to record dialogue. So whether you have a wireless microphone or you have a boom mic, whatever the case may be, like shotgun, boom mic, whatever, I think some form of audio is important to have, because that's one of those things that's really going to elevate your film, your filmmaking. Because if you're trying to do stuff off camera audio, that's not it. And I've tried all types of different ways. That was another thing that took me a while to get, because sound equipment back in the day used to be a lot more expensive than it is now. You can get a lot more budget mics that sound pretty decent nowadays, but when I was starting out, that really was not the case. So I used to use my phone a lot. I would try to take my phone and use the voice recorder app and get it as close to the subject as possible. I did that so many times, and looking back on it, I was like, I know it looked so crazy. But being able to have a microphone, be it a lapel, wireless mic, or like a shotgun, or whatever type of mic you can get your hands on, to be able to get the best possible audio you can get, I think is a big plus. All right, so the other thing I think that's super important to have would be a good lens. And I guess really honestly, you can do a prime lens. I decided to go the zoom lens route. And I know there's different reasons on why you would want to have a prime lens versus having a zoom lens. But in my mindset, I wanted to get as many focal lengths as I could into one lens, because I know I'm working on a budget, and I didn't have all this money to buy a bunch of different lenses, and I wanted to get a good solid one. So I got the 18-35 Sigma art lens, the EF mount one. Everybody has that lens, I feel like, but it's such a good lens, honestly, and it has such a good clean image, and it's so versatile, and you can do so many things with it. It's not the greatest if you're trying to get like close up stuff, but it's a solid lens to have. And if you pair it with like a telephoto prime, like an 85, or you get another zoom lens plus like a 50 to something, you can make up the other ranges with another lens. But this gives you good wide to medium focal lengths. I guess medium wide, depending on how you use a 35 mil. I use a 35 mil as a close up a lot of times, but depending on how you use that, you really can get a lot of life out of a lens like that. So that's my suggestion, is definitely getting you a solid piece of glass, even if it's just one, because you can be versatile and use it in different situations. You can get creative. If you have a prime, let's say it's like a 50 mil, you can back your camera up and you can get close, so you have different things you can do. But that definitely is something I think is important, because that will in itself unlock your camera to a whole nother level. Without even having to get another camera, you can increase your image quality astronomically just by having some good glass. And you don't want to get a kit lens. It's not saying you have to get the most expensive lens in the world, but definitely you want to be spending a good amount of money on it. I think this lens was like around $1,000. So that's not all lenses are created equal, but you want to be able to spend some good money. So I can drop some links below of all the things I've talked about. But these are some things that I think are super important and definitely will go a long way in helping making your life a lot easier as an indie filmmaker, especially if you're someone who's doing a lot of shooting on their own. So for the question of the week, we're going to keep it super simple. What is a piece of equipment, camera related, lights, whatever the case may be? What is a piece of equipment that you think is super important that you would suggest for a filmmaker looking to buy something to help take their filmmaking to another level? But yeah, leave it below and let me know. I want to see everybody's, different thought processes and suggestions, because it could be something completely different than what I listed that I might not even be thinking about. That's all I got for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. And as always, make sure that you get out there and shoot something. No excuses.